Daedric Princes have some of the most memorable and epic quests in all of the Elder Scrolls games. From the Shivering Isles of Sheogorath to Hermaeus Mora's Apocrypha, players have been mesmerized by these ancient beings for a very long time. There are 17 Daedric Princes that we know about in Elder Scrolls lore, and we've set out on a quest to decide which one is the strongest of them all. On this quest, we've enlisted the help of Lore Master Zaric, and this video would not be the same without his brilliant insight. If you're interested in some awesome Elder Scrolls content, we strongly recommend you head over to his channel and subscribe. The link is in the description, and be sure to check out his live streams too. But to answer this question about Daedric Princes, we must frame it in a way that is lore friendly, and to find out how to do that, we must first ask, what is a Daedric Prince? Daedra, Aedra, and what are known as the Magna Gi are all original spirits that existed before the creation of the world. What separates Daedra from Aedra is that the Aedra gave up their material forms in order to create the world, sacrificing much of their power to achieve this. The divines we see worshipped are an example of the Aedra. The Magna Gi were original spirits who also started giving up their power, but then decided to flee. After feeling their power drain away, they fled Mundus, creating the stars and the sun in the process. These entities are close to full power, but they're not quite there. The Daedra, on the other hand, were original spirits who outright refused to give up their material forms. This is why Daedra literally means not our ancestors in the Elven language. By rejecting the plan to create the world, the Daedric Princes retained all of their powers, and as a result, they are the strongest original spirits in creation. In fact, prior to Queen Alicia forming the pact with Akatosh that sealed Mundus off from oblivion, Aedra and Daedra walked freely among mortals. This is a very strange thought, and at this time, Daedra had the largest impact on the world. Now we know their origins, but what we also find out is that each Daedra's strength is actually the same from a practical standpoint, since they are all just original spirits. Their power over the world can be influenced by how much worship they receive, as seen with the mythic Dawn of Oblivion powering up Mehrunes Dagon. We also know that the Thalmor want to cut away Talos worship for this reason. They know that it actually helps his power and influence grow. But for the sake of this video, we're not satisfied with all Daedric Princes are equal. To rate which Daedra is the strongest, we will have to gauge their strength through what we know about them in the lore. Essentially on their actions and what has happened to them, which Daedric Prince has proven themselves either directly or indirectly as the strongest and most powerful. We looked at many polls we found online that showed what people thought the most powerful Daedric Princes were, and it is mainly these that we shall discuss. Keep in mind that because there is no super 100% pristine, clear-cut way of finding the strongest, that some of our decisions are subjective. But anyways, let's get to it. The first Daedra that I want to talk about is Meridia. Many would be inclined to believe that she could be the strongest Daedric Prince, as she helped the Aelids to dominate humanity prior to the Slave Queen's rebellion. However, Meridia actually achieved this by acting through other agents, through the half-elf Umral the Unfeathered, through her Auroran soldiers. But why is this so? Well, Meridia isn't exactly a Daedra. She actually became a Daedric Prince by consorting with them, and there's not many details known on the whole event, but technically she is actually a Magna Gi. She was one of those who fled with Magnus when they felt their powers draining away during the creation of the world. Whatever specifically caused her to be kicked out of Aetherius and end up in Oblivion is unknown, but living with all the Daedric Princes and having her own realm, she is now counted among them, but she still isn't quite their equal as part of her power was drained. That said, her ambition arguably makes up for this in a way, and it is said that her obsession with light is thought to be specifically the light of Aetherius she lost when she was kicked out. By the way, that's how sunlight can burn vampires, it's the light of Aetherius. Dawnbreaker is more or less a condensed version of that. One contender we'd be foolish not to question is the legendary Mehrunes Dagon. He is a very strong contender who not only invaded Tamriel 3 times, but also invaded the realms of other Daedra, namely the Solcan and Nocturnal's realms. These realms suffered attacks at his hands during the events of Elder Scrolls Legend Battlespire. Mehrunes was defeated by a very niche, unique method each and every time. He was beaten by a living god, once by a mortal who got super lucky, and again by a divine sacrifice. So the fact is that Mehrunes has been consistently beaten. He has great potential potential as the strongest Daedric Prince, but I don't think he is. He's definitely the most ambitious though, and still one of the most powerful based on his actions. Now, while Nocturnal's realm was in fact invaded by Mehrunes Dagon, she is definitely one of the strongest Daedric princes. She is said to be the oldest of all the Daedra and has two of the strongest Daedric artifacts, the Skeleton Key and the Grey Cowl of Nocturnal. You can watch our video on the strongest Daedric artifact to hear more about the power of these instruments. Again, aside from Mehrunes' invasion, which technically wasn't successful, Nocturnal generally is respected by the other Daedric princes in the sense that they have been seen to refuse to mess with her in the past. Sadly, even if Nocturnal is the strongest though, it's impossible to know due to her nature. She'd never tip her hand as to how powerful she is, so I think she still deserves this honorable mention. She also has loyal Nightingale servants and various large dungeon-sized temples devoted to her. Her widespread worship, especially among thieves, definitely helps grow her influence and power as well. That said, she did have her own artifact, the cow, stolen from her, and when her realm was invaded by Mehrunes, many in her own service were corrupted and betrayed her. Her strength is very hard to gauge based on her mysterious nature. Molag Bal is another strong Daedra and was said to have had his way with a priestess of Archay, killing her in the process and creating the first of the vampires as she rose from the dead. It was said that the vampires in Cyrodiil originate from her bloodline. People think this is a massive deal, and it is, but while the creation of the vampire bloodlines is certainly something to behold, I wouldn't say that makes him the most powerful Daedric prince of all time. He did also manage to invade, with Dark Anchors attempting to merge his realm with Tamriel during the events of ESO, but he was defeated here. But what about Hermaeus Mora? Hermaeus Mora is another one of the oldest Daedra around, and he's got all kinds of forbidden knowledge from the past and from the future. He also has really powerful artifacts like the Ogma Infinium. The thing about Hermaeus Mora, however, is that Hermaeus Mora himself creates nothing. He can't create knowledge, he can only steal it. His realm is filled with stolen knowledge he has hoarded, but nothing is truly of his own creation. He gave Xerxes the knowledge to create the Ogma Infinium, something that he couldn't do himself, and then usurped it as his tool. He uses mortals to do his work. He also can't alter fates or do anything overly dangerous to the mortal world because the barrier between Mundus and Oblivion prevents him from doing so. Same thing goes for most of the other Daedric princes. Another example of him needing help is when he didn't have knowledge from the Skull and asked you for help in Skyrim. So we know he really isn't an all-knowing Daedra, but that said, do not underestimate his power. He is definitely one of the most powerful, but not the most powerful, especially based on his actions, which is all we've got to go off for this video. Zaric and I think that Clavicus Vial is also worthy of brief mention too for potential power, although again, all you have are his words. Once I'm back to full power, one snap of my fingers and everyone in Skyrim will die. Poof, no more war. But is he really that strong? Or perhaps is it his other half that lets him be that powerful? Remember, in the quest A Daedra's Best Friend, you meet Barbas, whom you've met before in Oblivion as a statue and in Morrowind as Creeper the Scamp. It's made very clear that in all the shrines and depictions of Clavicus Vial that he and his hound are a duo, two parts of the same whole. This is further reinforced by the fact that he can't return to full power until Barbas has returned to him. But in Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, Barbas is the one who warns you not to give Umbra to Clavicus, indicating Barbas is the voice of reason within a mad, self-destructive Daedric prince that is Clavicus Vial. The canon choice, of course, has the player returning Umbra to Clavicus, leading to the Elder Scrolls novels, The Infernal City, and Lord of Souls. Again in Skyrim, Barbas acts as the voice of reason, making Clavicus keep good on his bargain with the player. So is it possible that the very thing that might give him immense power is also the thing that keeps him in check? It is an interesting possibility. Azura is a pretty big contender for the spot, and is credited by many with creating the Khajiit. She is also known for creating the Dark Elves from the golden-skinned Chimer. She frequently expresses prophecy to her agents, and even captured the soul of the ancient Chimer leader in Doral Nerevar. As a punishment for the tribunal for breaking their word to her in Nerevar, she forced Nerevar's soul to reincarnate until he fulfilled the Nerevarian prophecies. In this process, 2 living gods were killed and 1 went missing, who is presumed dead. The thing about Azura though is that she is powerful, but she's very indirect. She constantly sends people visions of herself and doesn't actually appear in the flesh. How about Sheogorath? he could actually be the strongest Daedric Prince of all. He routinely ignores the laws of creation, bending and twisting reality as he sees fit. On another Daedric Prince's summoning day, he can even just decide to take their place at will. He can manifest in the Ethereal Crux effortlessly to talk to the player during the events of Daggerfall. He was able to throw a moon down at Mundus to mock the self-proclaimed living gods, the Tribunal of Morrowind. He frequently does things that should be impossible given the barrier between Mundus and Oblivion. His influence over Mundus is insane, just like him. Now before you say, but hasn't Sanguine directly influenced Mundus by opening up his portal there in Skyrim? Technically in a small way, yes. He opened up what is basically a little makeshift Oblivion gate to send you through, but he still sends mortals to bring you in his portal. Sanguine is still powerful though, especially due to how worship affects power. It's not hard to convince mortals to worship the god of excess, pleasure and sin, but Sheogorath is still stronger. In the time of Skyrim, he pretty much just walks on in and snaps his fingers to begin chilling with a dead emperor of his own agency. And technically, while this realm isn't in Skyrim, it is actually in Skyrim at the same time. Sheogorath created a kind of pocket dimension, slipped into the space and called it his own. Sheogorath has also been shown to use his power of wit to defeat other Daedric princes at their own games. He beat Vaymina in a contest they had about making a man the most hated by the populace. Vaymina made him produce disgusting artworks which she sent him through his dreams, and this was found revolting by many people, but many others actually enjoyed it. Then when it came to Sheogorath's turn, he simply did nothing, knowing that this would cause the man to lose inspiration and begin to hate Vaymina, eventually spouting hate to everyone through his writing. Sheogorath won this contest, and won another competition with Hermaeus where they created beasts to fight to the death. Hermaeus made a were-Daedroth, and Sheogorath made a colourful little bird. The bird perched itself on the Daedroth's head, which then clawed at it and took out its own eyes. Blinded, the Daedroth swung for the chirping sounds furiously as the bird simply weaved around the beast, causing it to kill itself. We will come back to the topic of Sheogorath, but first let's talk about the strongest Daedric Prince of all time, by technicality. This Daedric Prince was the most powerful but isn't anymore. The Daedra I am talking about is Jyggalag. This Daedric Prince was so powerful that all of the other Daedric princes had to seal him away. They saw his realm of perfect order expand across the seas of Oblivion with great speed and power, and they were very jealous. They feared his power so much that they had to team up to do something about it. If that doesn't say he was the strongest Daedric Prince, then I don't know what will. You don't see the other Daedra conspiring to seal away Mehrunes Dagon forever. Now, since the end of the Third Era, Jyggalag has actually escaped from being sealed due to the events of the player in the Shivering Isles DLC for Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion. But in doing so, he lost most of his power. In order to free himself of the curse of Sheogorath, Jyggalag had to leave the Shivering Isles behind. Now remember, to a Daedric Prince, their realms are quite literally themselves, so when Jyggalag cut away from his realm, it was like cutting off a massive piece of himself and therefore his power and leaving it behind. I'll explain why it's his realm in a second, but anyways, in other words, it could take Jyggalag an uncountable amount of time to fully reform and recover from that. He may never be seen in another Elder Scrolls game, but if Bethesda decides to skip far ahead in time, then there is a very small chance he could have recovered, and if so, it makes him the strongest Daedric Prince once again. Now just quickly for those who haven't played Oblivion and are confused, Jyggalag was the Daedric Prince of Order who hated madness, but because he was so powerful and successful, the other Daedra teamed up and cursed him to become exactly that, Sheogorath, the Daedric Prince of Madness. Jyggalag was turned into Sheogorath. Jyggalag was allowed to return to his original form once after each era. He would then command his own Daedra and retake the Shivering Isles from his mad alter ego, Sheogorath, in an event known as the Grey March. Also, after being freed, the player in Oblivion then assumes Sheogorath's position as the Daedric Prince of Madness, and Jyggalag departs. It's complicated stuff, but the point is that Jyggalag is in fact the most powerful Daedric Prince, but at the time of Skyrim, he's definitely not. We'll have to wait for his return as he roams the Oblivion Plains, a mystery to any who wonder where he is and what he's doing. Now before departing, Jyggalag says to the player, "You will grow to your station," which is why you don't instantly become a god when the main quest is over. Jyggalag is referring to the process of mantling, where a person walks as a god does until no mortal can longer tell the difference between the two. By Skyrim, 200 years later, no mortal can tell the new Sheogorath apart from the old one because the hero from oblivion became him, retaining his power. The retention of this power is shown again in Skyrim, as I mentioned, where Sheogorath breaks the barrier between Mundus and oblivion without any care or help, creating a small space of his own. So coming in a full circle, I've already explained why Sheogorath is so damn powerful, and that Sheogorath was actually made from the most powerful Daedric Prince, Jyggalag. But now the two have been split into different entities, with an extremely weakened Jyggalag leaving the new Sheogorath in the Shivering Isles. Now this Sheogorath is just as powerful, and when encountered in Skyrim is spouting random words that correlate with quests from Oblivion, suggesting he is the main player. Now what we have to realize here is that Jyggalag cut off the majority of himself, his own realm, and therefore his power, the Shivering Isles, which now belongs to Sheogorath, making him the strongest. He may not be able to use the power of Jyggalag in the highly organized, order-based domination way the Daedric Prince of Order did, but he still has the manifestation of power that belonged to the strongest Daedric Prince, and is therefore the strongest, even if he has forever become the chaotic god of madness, unable to use his power in a way as efficient, so efficient that it sends the other Daedric princes running in fear, causing them to seal him away forever. Just be sure not to anger him though, or he might send a moon your way. Subscribe to FudgeMuppet for more Elder Scrolls discussion videos like these. We're really grateful that you watched it this far, and we hope you enjoyed it. Please share this video with your Daedra worshipping friends, and follow us on social media for behind the scenes FudgeMuppet action. My name is Michael, thanks for watching, and I'll nerd out with you again very soon.